Thanks, Heather. I hope you all enjoyed learning a bit about recursion today. I'm going to append some of my remarks so we can move straight into the Q&A. But before I do, I want to just say one thing, which is a huge thank you to everybody at Recursion who helped make this day possible. There's a lot of folks who are delivering pipeline programs and partnerships who were also moving chairs around, putting together slides to make sure that all of you could learn a little bit about Recursion. So a huge thanks to all of you for all the work you did, from the communications team to the IT team to the admin team. An incredible effort by those folks, and I hope you felt it today as our guests. With that, why don't we move to Q&A? Wow, I am really bad at microphones, just the sensitivity level there. Questions? Don't be bashful. Yes, Gil. I think we have a microphone coming your way.
Check. Okay. So it seems like you were reaching a certain level of maturation with your tools, which is pretty impressive. But at that point, what becomes more complicated is which questions to ask of your Magic 8-Ball. And maybe the demo you described earlier today is part of that answer.
Great question. Thanks for raising that. This is one of the fundamental challenges of recursion. We've got 3 trillion relationships in this map, and that number is going to grow substantially. How do we move that into not just the best insights, but how do we actually get to the point where we can automate some of the toil that will come into exploring this map? And I think one of the things that we've really been focused on, you heard a bit about it today from Lena, from Laura, this industrial program generation is a strategy whereby we can have dedicated teams at Recursion who explore large data sets, clinical data sets, papers that are coming out, and they help look in our map for interesting insights. And then we remove the toil of the next 6 or 12 weeks of work to validate those insights by almost entirely automatically moving them to validation through this phenomics platform, through a transcriptomic platform, so that we can then start investing really deeply in the places where there are validated real insights in our map. And our team can spend their time asking the question, do these matter for patients? But what's beyond that is I think that there are large population scale genomic data sets of interest that one could start bringing into our platform. That could help start guiding us in a more autonomous way to actually hone in on the most exciting insights that have the highest probability of addressing unmet need. That is work we've not begun yet. It's more manual, but I think that's a place Recursion aspires to go so that we can most efficiently pull all of the data out of the map. Great question. Thank you. Next. Yeah.
Thanks for the time today. So maybe I want to come at the sort of question of what do you move through your process from the other end, which is, you know, the speed and efficiency of clinical prosecution, right? So you're now in the clinic and, you know, encountering some sort of different challenges, right, in terms of enrollment and in terms of things like study design, I imagine. How do you think about how you might sort of automate, both sort of inject insights about clinical executability into how you choose programs up front, but then also ways of automating and industrializing the clinical trial process? And then maybe how do you think about that across, and how might that be different across owned pipeline versus partnered?
Great question. Thank you. What I would say is, can I borrow the handheld? Sorry. Feedback is a little strong. Chef, I'm going to have you come up here. But what I'd just say is it's not a place we've really innovated yet. We're trying to build an incredible clinical development team who can safely shepherd these early assets through our pipeline, because one can only innovate in so many places at one time. And Recursion wants to build innovation at every step of the process, but I don't think today is the time for us to be doing that with all the other work we're doing. So we need to make sure that we don't take too many risks in our clinical programs in the early days. But I could imagine in the coming years, as we finish building out our chemistry platform and our translational platforms, we may get to the point where either through our own internal build or perhaps through partnerships with some of the incredible companies in the space. You know, we've been innovating in drug discovery. There have been companies for the last 10 years or more who've been trying to innovate in the clinical development space. There could be great opportunities for us to partner with the Tempuses or others of the world to help drive some of our programs in a more efficient way. Chef, do you want to add anything since you're leading that team.
No, it's a great question. I'll just try and link it back to, we talked a little bit about recursion mindset. And as we talk about sort of more the distal axis of drug development, which is highly regulated, there's still an opportunity to apply the recursion mindset to really industrialize the later stages of drug development. Examples are, for example, when we talk about our interactions with the regulators, right? So what we're doing here in terms of data generation is white paper level discussions with the FDA, right? In terms of what are these industrialized transcriptomics, phenomics, how does that give us confidence in terms of pushing programs closer and quicker to patients, right? We talk about strategic relationships with our focus in oncology, strategic relationships with phase 1 centers such as MD Anderson, Memorial Sloan Kettering, central IRB processes that really decimates the normal review times. So I think there's an ample opportunity in addition to large patient population data sets that we can reverse engineer to the level of clinical trial design stratification, but also fundamentally to more proximal and to looking at how we better query our maps and really mine real world data in terms of mutational profiles and make more targeted interventions there. So, I think we watch the space closely. I think there's going to be a lot of movement moving forwards there.
Thank you. All right, next question. I saw a couple, there we go.
Hey, Alex Stranahan from Bank of America. One question I had, your current pipeline is all small molecules. Is that sort of lower hanging fruit for your platform in your view? And is there potential flexibility down the road to shift to biologics as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there certainly are targets that are going to be most amenable to other modalities of treatment. And if we find in our map those targets, we will not hesitate to partner with some of the leaders in a variety of other modalities to help drive those programs forward. To the earlier question, we can only innovate in so many places at once. And this is a very innovative place. And I think what we need to demonstrate to all of you, to the market, to our partners, is the ability to drive programs all the way through proof of concept with one modality, which is small molecules. We've chosen that for a variety of reasons. If we're able to demonstrate those proof of concepts, I think we will very aggressively move in a horizontal direction to take all of the learnings, all the mindsets, all of the data to then expand into other modalities, which may be the ones we're talking about today, or they could be different in 3 or 4 years. But I think there will be new learning that's required, new data sets that are required, new algorithms that are required. But I actually think that horizontal expansion into those other modalities is going to be less of an innovation for Recursion than taking our programs all the way through into the later stage clinical portions of the pipeline. Thank you. Great question. Yeah, Max.
Thanks, Chris. Matt talked about the like-mindedness with Bayer and Roche Genentech, and I was wondering, I guess, 2 things. How would you sort of describe the state of like-mindedness away from those 2 in the big pharma community today? And then secondly, how does Recursion go about actually vetting for it as you seek out partners?
Matt, why don't you join me? I'm going to give a brief answer, and it's going to be lawyerly, and I'm going to say it depends. There's actually a broad spectrum of perspectives in this space, and I would give a lot of credit to some of the large pharma companies who, they are moving very big ships with incredible momentum and a lot of focus on late-stage programs that are on the cusp of delivering to patients. And I would say over the last 3 or 4 years, incredible nimbleness for such big entities to start really thinking about this space. Now, certainly companies like Roche Genentech, putting Aviv Regev in charge of research at Genentech, that's a huge signal to this field. You have really the first computational biologist leading one of the largest research entities. And I think that is a harbinger of what's to come, but some of the companies aren't there yet. So I'll turn the rest of the eloquent answer over to Matt.
No, I'll just add to it. I'm sorry, show who asked the question, because I had my back facing to you. Thanks. I think there is a quickly growing group within large pharma who appreciate and who are on board with the vision. What I find and what we find often in our conversations is there remains at times an underestimation about how hard it is to build scaled, reliable, relatable data sets that Lena and Imran were talking about. And sometimes that underestimation leads some pharma partners to believe that they can create what we're creating. And I will say some of the easiest conversations that Shafiq and I have is when those pharma partners have attempted to go and build what we've created, only to come back and have a conversation with us. That's also why, as you all have experienced today, it is so important to come here to see, to touch, to feel, to interact with the data sets, the robotic and automation setups that we've built. Because I think it is underappreciated that the amount of capital, the amount of time, and frankly, the number of failures before you can really start learning that's required to build the systems that we're building. So the vision, I feel like most people have a crystallized vision for how they're going to use artificial intelligence. And I think increasingly, as more people are coming to the realization that it's companies like Recursion and it's companies who are building very intentionally those proprietary data sets who are going to be successful. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Great question. Yes?
The presentation today, Chris. Just one on pipeline strategy. Moving forward, I guess you could say medium to long term, right? Should we expect, primarily NCEs in the pipeline, or are you guys still possibly considering, in licensing, external compounds as you have in the past?
Yeah, so we will certainly be opportunistic. If there's a medicine that is closer to the clinic with great data behind it and our map gives us an insight, we will not be shy about trying to in-license those medicines. One of the things that I think I got most wrong in the early days of Recursion, is that I believed that all incentives would align when it came to in-licensing these assets from large partners. And though many of them, I think, emotionally are aligned, there's a variety of sort of perverse incentives in our industry that are no one individual's fault, they're just the way the industry has grown, that makes it really challenging in some circumstances to bring those medicines in. But when we find the opportunity and the data supports it, we will be aggressive to bring those in. That said, you're absolutely right. I think the vast majority of programs coming through our pipeline are going to be new chemical entities. And I think one of the reasons you're seeing us invest so deeply in small molecule chemistry, the predictive ADME program that you saw at the top of the stairs, some of the work that Imran shared and Lena shared around the digital chemistry tools we're building, even our own ambition to continue growing with automated microsynthesis, those are in service of our belief that the vast majority of the programs will be NCEs. Thank you. All right. Oh, we don't have the microphone on yet. Thanks.
Hi, okay, just thinking about Rec 4881 and then how you're taking it into both FAP and then Axon 1 APC. I don't think this is the last time that your platform is going to be able to identify more than one indication that a chemical compound could be attractive in. So just thinking about how you decide which indications to take forward and how you prioritize those.
Great, I'm going to invite Shaf up to answer that one.
That's a great question. I think during my overview of the clinical programs, I mentioned a couple of times about the power of inference in terms of indication expansion, talked a little bit about life cycle expansion, both in the setting of new insights that we're getting that are being generated from the platform. I think then really the case becomes of rapid diligence in terms of what is the size of the unmet medical need here? Today, for example, in cancer, we have 2,500 clinical trials that are ongoing. By God, this is going to change the landscape of cancer therapy in the next 3 to 5 years, right? Where we think today unmet medical need sits, that landscape will look very different in 3 to 5 years. So we have to remain true to our mission in terms of the insights we're generating. On one hand, we'll never leave any insight that has potential to impact the patient's journey without oxygen in terms of moving forwards. But at the same time, I think we have to be pragmatic in terms of, where do we see rational combination therapies, a lot of combination trials ongoing at the moment, where do we see areas continuing to pose unmet medical need or areas that will bring up emergent medical need in terms of how we sort of, prioritize these programs. I think at the moment, fair to say, we have a very nimble strategy, and that's why the common slide that Matt and I shared that goes across corporate development and clinical development in terms of how we think about value. I think we have to be very pragmatic in terms of what can we execute as Recursion. A lot of the cancer therapies, a lot of the targets that will emerge will probably be combination plays, in which case we will leverage our corporate development, business development access to bring in partners who have those portfolio pipeline molecules to start, combination trials sooner. So I think what you'll see is a very dynamic picture moving forwards in terms of, how we create value, how we execute programs, either as Recursion de novo or where we bring partnerships as well on that.
Thanks, Shaf. All right. We've got time for a couple more. All right. Thank you, everybody.